Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling a massive, kind of mind-bending spiritual contradiction that has honestly puzzled researchers and seekers for ages. We're going to dive right into reconciling two utterly fascinating, yet seemingly totally incompatible things. Deeply profound, authentic spiritual experiences on the one hand, and definitive scriptural guidance on the other. It is a wild journey into the mystery of human consciousness, the limits of our language, and the incredible scale of the human soul. Let's get right into it. Okay, so here's the central mystery. How do we actually reconcile these incredibly vivid, first-hand accounts of past lives with authoritative spiritual traditions that say, unequivocally, literal reincarnation just isn't a thing? In one corner, we have highly credible reports from near-death experiencers, as well as non-speaking autistic individuals who vividly describe reincarnation. But confronting that, we have authoritative religious scriptures. Specifically, our source material today focuses on the teachings of the Baha'i faith, which definitively reject the idea of literal reincarnation. How can both of these things exist at the same time? First off, we absolutely have to start by empathetically acknowledging just how profound and transformative these reports are. We're looking at sources like the telepathy tapes and massive NDE databases, and these individuals aren't just having vague feelings. They vividly describe remembering previous lives, literally sitting down and choosing their life circumstances before they were even born, living through multiple earthly lifetimes, or encountering spiritual guides who explain the whole process to them. Researchers approach these individuals with absolute presumed competence, meaning they deeply trust that these people are experiencing something incredibly real. But then, wow, we hit a massive roadblock. Because for believers of the Baha'i faith, the sacred writings are the final word, and they strictly reject literal reincarnation. Abdu'l-Baha, one of the central figures of the faith, essentially taught that arguments for reincarnation are based on conjectures and suppositions, rather than conclusive proofs. The text firmly asserts that the soul does not cycle endlessly backward through physical bodies here on Earth. This actually brings up a really beautiful concept from the teachings called the law of correspondence. Basically, think about nature. Physical appearances are never exactly duplicated, right? No two leaves, no two snowflakes are ever 100% identical. So by that logic, a spiritual return to the exact same earthly condition is completely interdicted. It's impossible. The material world naturally mirrors the spiritual kingdom. Since nature never repeats the exact same physical appearance twice, the soul doesn't return to repeat the exact same earthly condition. So if the soul isn't just hopping from body to body, what is it actually doing? Well, the Baha'i teachings state that the incorporeal spirit connects to the body like the sun reflects into a mirror. It's a great analogy. The sun doesn't literally pack up its bags and move down into the glass. It just illuminates it from afar. When the mirror breaks, the sun remains completely untouched. From there, the soul's evolution is linear. It moves ever forward to approach God, rather than cycling backwards to the earthly plane. Now, this brings up a super fascinating problem about how we know what's actually true. If we just say, okay, personal spiritual experiences are the ultimate authority, well, we hit a brick wall. Why? Because the reports themselves completely contradict each other. Some folks who've had near-death experiences absolutely affirm reincarnation, yet others explicitly deny it. Some say it's totally optional, while others describe an eternal spiritual progression without ever returning to Earth. If the experience itself is the ultimate truth, we're left with a really fragmented picture. So how does an open-minded person actually make sense of all this? We literally can't just ignore these profound, life-altering experiences from NDEers and autistic communicators. But we also can't ignore the very clear theological frameworks from authoritative texts. Finding a respectful way to bridge this massive gulf without dismissing either side, that is the real puzzle. To solve this, the source material introduces this absolutely fascinating visual analogy. It's called a Fata Morgana. If you haven't heard of it, it's this incredibly complex desert or ocean mirage. Atmospheric conditions literally bend light rays to distort distant objects, making them look like literal ships floating in the sky or phantom cities hovering on the horizon. The observer genuinely perceives something magnificent, but their mind simply misinterprets what is actually there. Let's break down how this builds our synthesis, because it perfectly applies to our spiritual contradiction. Step 1. The light being refracted is totally real. The observer isn't crazy, they're not hallucinating. But step 2. Their conclusion that, oh, there's a physical lake right there is a mistake. It's a mirage. The source material suggests that interpreting a vast, multidimensional spiritual vision as a literal past life is exactly like seeing a Fata Morgana. The spiritual perception is 100% authentic, but the earthly framework used to explain it is a mirage. You see, when our 3D human brain encounters a timeless spiritual reality or taps into this profound archetypal knowledge, it scrambles to translate it. Experiencing a realm completely outside of earthly time Your brain translates that into, oh, I lived in a previous era. Accessing a collective ocean of consciousness, that turns into, I was all of those different people. And if you deeply experience another soul's memories, your three-dimensional mind naturally concludes, I must have lived their life. Have you ever felt so deeply connected to someone else's story that it honestly felt like your own? Now multiply that by 1,000,000. During an intensely porous state, like a near-death life review, the boundaries of the self just completely dissolve. Experiencing the profound interconnectedness of humanity feels absolutely identical to actually having been those people. To say I was all those people versus I was deeply connected to all those people might feel like the exact same thing in that mystical state. It's only when we're back in our physical bodies that those two statements mean completely different things. Furthermore, just imagine trying to understand the concepts of before and after in a realm where the past, present, and future are all happening at the exact same time. The spiritual world just isn't constrained by earthly time. If you encounter a timeless reality, our earthly concepts of linear time completely vanish. And without linear time, a vision of eternal spiritual realities effortlessly creates the illusion that you're experiencing a series of sequential past lives. We also have to keep in mind that scriptures across various traditions often speak of a return symbolically. Take the Christian tradition, for example, where Jesus describes John the Baptist as coming in the spirit and power of Elijah. That doesn't mean Elijah's literal soul was reborn into a new body. It denotes a spiritual recurrence, a return of qualities, of virtues, of influence. And this is crucial because it gives us permission to view these modern reports through a symbolic lens rather than a literal one. Really, the core challenge we're looking at is a massive translation problem. The experiencer faces this monumental task of translating multidimensional truths using the very limited framework of human language. I mean, our language evolved to help us navigate earthly life, not eternal spiritual realms. It's kind of like trying to explain a 3D object to a being that only understands 2 dimensions. The description is always going to fall slightly short, which is exactly why holy books constantly rely on words like image or reflection to talk about the soul. To really hammer this point home, Abdu'l-Baha frequently used the analogy of the womb, which is brilliant. Imagine a fetus in the womb trying to comprehend a massive mountain, or the vast ocean, or starlight. It's literally biologically impossible. In that exact same way, we in our current physical state simply cannot fully grasp the astonishing paradoxes of the next world. Our brains just aren't wired for it yet. And you know what? This leads us to a really beautiful position of deep intellectual humility. We honor Baha'u'llah's teaching that the exact nature of the soul is a sign of God, and it remains an incalculable mystery that no human mind can fully comprehend. Acknowledging this mystery isn't dodging the question. It's an earned, profound recognition of the awe-inspiring scale of what we are actually dealing with here. So, by applying this Fata Morgana analogy, we actually reach an incredible synthesis. We get to fully validate the profound sincerity of the experiencer. The experience is real. The soul is real. These extraordinary perceptions genuinely do occur. But at the very same time, we can acknowledge that our initial earthly interpretations, like a literal reincarnation, aren't necessarily the final truth. The full metaphysical reality simply exceeds our current capacity to explain it. Which leaves us with a truly profound question to end on today. If our souls are a mystery existing far beyond our current three-dimensional understanding, are we ready to accept that our deepest, most profound spiritual experiences might actually be bigger than our ability to neatly explain them? It's something that definitely leaves you pondering the awe-inspiring, uncontainable scale of human spirituality. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer today, and keep exploring those mysteries.